10. 33-foot anaconda. In 2016, workers pillaging a jungle in Brazil came across yet another of the biggest snakes ever seen on the planet. This one was found lurking near the cave of Altamira in the northern Brazilian state of Para. Workers were tearing down trees, flattening the forest, and blowing apart anything in their way. It was during a series of controlled explosions that the snake came slithering out of the jungle, disorientated and confused. What did the Brazilian workers do? They scooped up the giant snake with a piece of machinery, wrapped it up in heavy chains, and then dangled it in the air and took pictures of it. The snake appeared to be about 33 feet, 10 meters long, maybe even more. Its body measured over 3.3 feet, 1 meter in diameter. It's unclear what killed the snake, but it was certainly dead by the time the construction workers were done with it. It could have been hit by rocks during the explosion, or it could have just died from stress and abuse at the hands of these men. Either way, nobody officially measured the snake, and so it can't break any official world records for size. But experts do say this was probably the biggest anaconda ever captured by people. 9. The biggest snake in Florida history. The biggest snake ever captured and recorded in Florida was 17 feet and 7 inches 5.5 meters long, weighing 164 pounds, 74 kilograms. It was discovered by workers with the US Geological Survey in August of 2012 as they participated in research in the Everglades National Park. It's true that Burmese pythons can get bigger than this, but only in their home territory in Asia. The Burmese pythons in Florida have the disadvantage of being on foreign soil. For whatever reason, they've just never grown as big in Florida as they have in places like Indonesia. But they do multiply at an insane rate. When scientists took this giant snake back to their lab, they found 87 eggs in its stomach, which turned out to be another state record. Sadly, the Burmese pythons are currently threatening to completely annihilate native birds in Florida. Because they can grow nearly 20 feet 6 meters long and multiply like jackrabbits, they're slowly but surely eating all the birds in Florida. They've also been recorded eating alligators and bobcats, and basically any living animal that can fit inside their jaws. 8. Texas snakes. Texas is another place in America where you can find some of the biggest snakes on the continent. A little girl found out the hard way just how scary these creatures can be. The child, just 12 years old, had to be rescued in Southlake after she got stuck in a sewage drain with 2 giant snakes and couldn't get out. It happened in 2022. 2 young sisters named Tori and Carly were outside the area around their home. Tori found a drainage pipe and thought it would be a good idea to climb inside. As she was moving into the tunnel, she saw a giant black snake. She was too scared to turn around, so she went deeper into the tunnel hoping that she could find a different way out. But when she got deeper into the pipe, she was faced with another huge black snake. It turned out to be an evil snake den, and Tori had unwittingly tunneled her way directly into its heart. Her sister ran to get help, and thankfully their mum rushed to the rescue. But she couldn't lift the heavy grate to get her daughter out of the hole, and her daughter was screaming that the snakes were getting closer. The mum had to call the Southlake Fire Department to come and rescue the child from the snakes. According to the firemen, the snakes weren't actually a threat to the child. They were only Texas rat snakes, a non-venomous subspecies, but they still grow to be incredibly big, over 7 feet, 2.1 meters in length. For little Tori, it must have felt like she'd just fallen into the snake pit of hell. 7. The Maryland House of Serpents. A man in Maryland was discovered in 2022 dead inside of his home. According to police officials in Charles County, officers were called to do a wellness check after a neighbor saw him lying on the floor through his window. When the police entered the home, they found over 125 snakes of all different varieties inside. The neighbor said he had no idea the man was a collector of rare and deadly serpents. A spokesperson for Charles County Animal Control told local news that the department bagged nearly 130 snakes, some of them venomous. The spokesperson went on to say The biggest snake in the house was a Burmese python, a monstrous creature over 14 feet, 4.2 meters long. To put that in perspective, it was only 3 feet shorter than the biggest Burmese python ever captured in Florida. And yet it was just sliming around in this guy's house. We don't know if he was killed by one of his snakes. When the police and animal rescue experts went through his home, they didn't find any of the snakes broken out of their cages. It may have just been a coincidence that it died on the floor of his kitchen. And, in the end, it ended up being the biggest collection of snakes the animal control officials had seen in over 30 years of operation. 6. Big snake, small island. What could very well be the biggest snake in the entire world was discovered in a Caribbean forest, revealed via viral video in 2021. The astonishing footage shows a serpent of unbelievable proportions being lifted up by a crane in the jungle. The monstrous beast was discovered by workers cleaning out part of the rainforest in Dominica. By cleaning out, we mean they were destroying the natural ecosystem. And while they were destroying it, they discovered a snake the size of a prehistoric monster. Dominica is a Caribbean island paradise, only about 29 miles, 47 kilometers long, and 16 miles, 26 kilometers wide. Nobody knows for sure just how many of these giants are on the small island. And we also don't know how big the snake the workers found actually was, because no one thought to properly measure it. However, it does appear to be somewhere in the realm of 15 to 20 feet, 4.5 to 6 meters long, so heavy it could only be lifted up by a crane. It could be a boa constrictor, a native species of the island. But normally, they don't grow to be any more than 13 feet, 4 meters. This one was a supernatural anomaly. When attacking its unfortunate prey, boa constrictors first bite with their sharp teeth before wrapping themselves around their victims and squeezing them to death. 5. Huge Georgian serpent. Speaking of anomalies, yet another giant snake was discovered in Georgia, of all places. Wildlife biologists in Fort Stewart captured a huge eastern indigo snake and then posted the information and pictures on their Facebook page. They say the snake, which they caught in early 2022, was approximately 7 feet and 7 inches, 2.3 meters, only slightly smaller than the all-time Georgia record. Still, the team at the Georgia Southern University Department of Biology called it one of the most magnificent animals in the region. What you may not know is that the eastern indigo snake is the longest native serpent in the United States. This is putting aside the pythons in Florida that have no business being in Florida because they're an invasive species. And although almost 8 feet might be a pretty impressive record, take a look at the real record. Florida Fish and Wildlife claim the longest eastern indigo snake ever found in the US was 9 feet and 2 inches, 2.8 meters long. You might think a snake that long would be really heavy, but it only weighed about 11 pounds, 5 kilograms. Fortunately, these snakes aren't poisonous, so you don't have to worry about being killed by one. They're also currently restricted to southern Georgia and Florida, although scientists are slowly reintroducing them to Alabama. Stay out of the South if you don't want to worry about giant snakes. 4. The sofa snake. In April of 2021, a man in Chula Vista, California, recently came across a snake inside of his couch cushions. It was the biggest snake he'd ever seen in his life. Naturally, the man ran away. He called Alex Trejo with SoCal Rattlesnake Removal, frantic and basically crying on the phone. Alex showed up to the house, where he discovered an unbelievable Vietnamese blue beauty rat snake coiled up behind one of the cushions. In case you were wondering, this is not a native species in California. It's a non-venomous serpent that can grow to be preposterously huge and is normally found in Vietnam and other parts of Southeast Asia. This particular snake was 7 feet, 2.1 meters long, and coiled defensively on the couch, ready to lash out and strike. In fact, Alex himself had his shirt ripped by the serpent's fangs when it tried to bite his stomach. He did manage to collect the reptile and take it away, but sadly, it came down with a respiratory infection. The big question remaining was how could such a rare and unique snake from across the world end up on a California man's couch? According to Alex, it was probably an illegal pet in California owned by somebody in the homeowner's neighborhood. But it escaped and found its way to a new home, just in time to nearly scare the pants off a total stranger. 3. Prehistoric serpent bones. The world's biggest snake ever was discovered near a coal mine in Colombia. According to the US Smithsonian and Tropical Research Institute, scientists came across the fossil of the biggest snake that ever lived. It's called the Titanoboa, an ancient relative of the boa constrictor, and it lived nearly 60 million years ago. Although nobody's ever seen one with their own eyes, the few examples of vertebrae bones discovered in Colombia are proof that it existed. Jason Head from the Research Institute says the discovery of the great serpent will change the understanding of ancient climates and environments. It's also breaking the boundaries of previous evolutionary limitations. Thanks to the Titanoboa, we now know animals were bigger than life in the prehistoric days before humans. That snake was so unbelievably massive that if someone were to see it today, they might drop dead from a heart attack. The Titanoboa was roughly 42 feet, 12.8 meters long, and weighed over a ton. It was so thick that its body would hardly be able to fit through a normal doorway. The reason the Titanoboa was so big likely had something to do with the average annual temperature. Researchers say it was 86 to 93 degrees Fahrenheit on average, which is way hotter than modern rainforests around the world today. The heat bred horrifying creatures. But the truth is that we hardly know how big they really got. Only a few fossils were discovered of the Titanoboa in the Cerrejón coal mine. For all we know, these fossils belonged to a baby snake, and the mama was even larger. Or it could have been that there were other species of ancient snake whose fossils have never been found. These unknown reptiles may have been even bigger than the Titanoboa. 2. The Malaysian monster. 2016 was a big year for giant snakes. At around the same time, workers in Brazil came across the biggest anaconda in human history. The biggest python ever discovered in the wild was found at a Malaysian construction site. It was a reticulated python, the longest reptile in the world. Local authorities said the snake was roughly 26 feet, 7.9 meters long. And while that's a far cry from the 33-foot anaconda, it would have beat the previous Guinness World Record holder as the longest snake ever caught. The issue was that the snake died almost immediately after it was captured, which disqualified it from being any kind of record holder. But it did take over 5 men to hold the snake up, and they said it weighed over 550 pounds, 249 kilograms. To show just how huge that is, let's look at the current record holder of the longest snake in captivity. The snake's name is Medusa, kept in Kansas City. Medusa is also a reticulated python, yet she only weighs 343 pounds, 156 kilograms, and is only 25 feet and 2 inches, 7.6 meters long. 1. Giant snake skeleton. You may have seen an image circulating across the internet of a giant snake skeleton twisted on the shores of a beach. It looks like the skeletal remains of a Titanoboa, or the freshly decayed corpse of an actual dragon, maybe even a sea serpent's bones washed onto the beach. But what is going on with this photograph? It generated a huge buzz online in 2022, originally posted by someone who discovered it while looking through Google Maps in March. The snake was found off the coast of France, and it really is just what it looks like you can see in the picture. It's a giant snake skeleton that can only be appreciated using satellite photos. According to Snopes, the snake skeleton is real, but not what it appears to be. It's actually a metallic sculpture called Le Serpent d'Océan, or the Serpent of the Ocean. It measures 425 feet, 130 meters, and was originally installed back in 2012. It's just that the Google Maps satellite imagery needed to be updated before people started coming across it. Thanks for watching! Would you rather stumble upon a giant snake in the wilderness or a medium snake in your own couch cushions? Let us know which would be more terrifying in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you again soon. Bye!